Hi, welcome to Write More Light. My name is Sarah. I am talking to you on behalf of the Midwest Writing Center, and I'm excited today to talk about some kinds of writing that I'm really into. The topic, of course, today is second person versus direct address, and those are two different things that are really easy to confuse. As usual, I'll go through a little lesson, share some information, then I'll talk about what's up at the Midwest Writing Center or what's coming up at the Midwest Writing Center, and then we'll have a 5-minute free write. And so let's dig in. So direct address and second person, I'm a big fan of both. I think any writer should at least experiment with both. They're really cool, they're pretty tough, and they're always pretty great to read. But they are totally different from each other and very, very easy to confuse. So they're both generally identified by the use of the word you. That is not a good enough definition. And in fact, as I was preparing for today, I did a little bit of research into, what other people say. I'm not the be all end all expert of all things. And so like what I looked up was when to use second person or when to use direct address, or like why people use them, right? And a lot of the time when you talk about second person or when other people talk about second person, they also talked about direct address, which I found really frustrating because I see them separately. And so let's talk about the definitions. Direct address is speaking directly to something or someone. There are times, of course, when I, as the speaker, am talking to you, say like with an epistolary, which is a fancy word for letters or diaries, right? So I'm talking directly to the person I'm writing to. Or, it doesn't have to be a person, right? It can be to my crappy printer. Sorry, printer, I love you, please be nice to me. Or to my pet, or to my favorite t-shirt, but the speaker is speaking directly to something or someone. With second person, that's not necessarily the case. In fact, I would say a lot of the time, the you is like the main character, for lack of a better phrase, for lack of a better term, because we see both of these across genres, and maybe there's not a main character per se, but like a lot of the time you is replacing I. We're seeing things through this person's perspective, or that's what I think they're most interchangeable. If you have a narrative that had been in first person, which is saying I all the time, right? I had this experience. You're flipping it around and you're saying you had this experience. Second person, generally speaking, is identified by the use of you. But you then are sort of the narrator, definitely the main character of the piece. Everything is filtered through you. Of course, I don't mean you, my dear viewer, but you, the you the character, again, for lack of a better word, the character. Forgive me, I was trying to share this video and I thought that it would be super easy, and it was not super easy. But of course, they're much easier to discern in prose than in poetry. In poetry, we see a lot of stuff written to you, and it's kind of hard to tell if the you is the writer, narrator, or someone else. But it's a lot easier to discern in prose. And so let's dig into that. I've got a couple of examples ready for you. I've got I'm going to do a prose example and then a poetry example of each. So the first one, and I'm sorry, I'm going to do it this way because I I'm going to be reading the prose ones, and I'm going to have a video up of the poetry ones. So that's just how it's going to go, so that it's not just 10 hours of looking at me and then 10 hours of looking at the video. Okay, so the super, super easy thing that everybody tends to bring up is for prose is Bright Lights Big City by, I always thought his name was Jay McInerney, but his name is Jay McInerney, I think, which is like the classic second person novel. It's not an old book, so that's sort of a sad statement. I imagine it was written in the 80s because it takes place, I think, pretty obviously in the 80s. Yes, 1984. So I'm going to just read like the first page of each of these books that I pulled out. And then, so this is second person, right? Contents, chapter 1, it's 6 a.m. Do you know where you are? Oh, I'm gonna also give you like a little bit of a content warning. I'm 90% sure he's talking about cocaine in the first paragraph. So I didn't read this to practice for you. Heads up on that. It's 6 a.m. Do you know where you are? You are not the kind of guy who would be at a place like this at this time of the morning. But here you are, and you cannot say that the terrain is entirely unfamiliar, although the details are fuzzy. You're at a nightclub talking to a girl with a shaved head. The club is either Heartbreak or the Lizard Lounge. All might come clear if you could just slip into the bathroom and do a little more Bolivian marching powder. Then again, it might not. A small voice inside you insists that this epidemic lack of clarity is a result of too much of that already. The night has already turned on the imperceptible pivot where 2 a.m. changes to 6 a.m. You know this moment has come and gone, but you are not yet willing to concede that you have crossed the line beyond which all is gratuitous damage and the palsy of unraveled nerve endings. Somewhere back there, you could have cut your losses, but you rode past the moment on a comet trail of white powder, and now you are trying to hang on to the rush. Your brain at this moment is composed of brigades of tiny Bolivian soldiers. They are tired and muddy from their long march through the night. There are holes in their boots and they are hungry. They need to be fed. They need the Bolivian marching powder. That was just one paragraph, so that's why I turned the page and kept going. You see that is second person. He's not writing to a human. He's just narrating with the you word, right? So as our poetry example of this, we're going to do the poem Night. Sorry, my notes are really messy. We're going to do the poem Nightstick by Joy Priest, which I have queued up here for us. Share screen. Okay.
Nightstick. In Kentucky, you are a black girl, but don't know it. You sleep next to it, crooked bone, split open head patrolling through the night. Don't even know you should be trying to run away. It rests in your night terrors, in a bureau between your grandmother's quilt with her thimbles and thread and dead white poems. Don't think for a moment your grandfather won't pull it out, make a cross of it with your arms, gift you its weight in crime. Do you believe? What if he said its name was Justice? Would that be too much? If he was the only man your childhood saw hauled away in handcuffs, pale and liver spotted and stiffened limbs sharp enough to fold into the back of a cruiser, you, this bruise of irony, the only two blacks ever allowed in his house. And at night, he be singing you to sleep while it sits invisible, sentry-like out of sight. He be humming hymns. I come to the garden alone while the dew is still on the roses. Knowing how much blood it has seen and whose. He be holding you to himself like a secret. And every song be a prayer for your daddy's sunk in head, you breathing one for his whole face before you. Bullying a shit-shaded boy's head is what it's made for, he say, your papa, while you hold it, not knowing enough about yourself to understand the cannibal nature of chewing on his words with no riot inside, No baton twirling in the air of your stomach. No notice of the grand wizard and his wand when he appears in your nightmares. You be closed eye, and it be there black as who it means to be.
Oh, wow. Thank you. You know what?
Okay. So that was part of a conversation that she had with Round Girl Book Lover, and a really beautiful poem. She's a really amazing poet. Her debut book is called Horsepower. It is probably my favorite book of poetry I read last year, and that is saying a lot. It came out in 2019, I believe. It was the winner of the Donald Hall Prize for Poetry from the Association of Writers and Writing Programs. So big deal. Oh, it came out in 2020. It just won the award in 2019. So good, so powerful. Every poem is just like knock you in the face. So that was second person, right? Again, we see that the you there isn't necessarily a real person she's talking to, probably is trying to put the reader or the audience in position to understand an experience that is maybe not their own, which is something that second person is really, really excellent about. Something a second person is really hard to do well. And I would say it's more often done well in poetry than prose. Poetry, of course, in this context, is a little hard to define, but I think something about that is just the rules of prose don't lend themselves so easily to second person. And second person can very, very easily, if done well, put the reader right there in the action in a very visceral and meaningful way. It sort of jogs the brain into really, really seeing like, oh, I am this character or whatever. I'll go into that a teensy bit more later. This is going to be a pretty short video today, because I'm going to talk about both of these in more depth at a later date, separately. But for today, I wanted to talk about how these are two different things and not necessarily what the big, beautiful craft details of the two things are. So our next book, I really wanted to, for Direct Address, there's this really great book by Matthew Quick, who I admire a lot. He almost always has happy endings. He's a novelist. He almost always has happy endings, and they're always following these really difficult narratives. He always deals with mental health. He almost always deals with trauma. His books are really special to me, and he has this one book called The Good Luck of Right Now, which I couldn't find on my shelf. I must have lent it out. And it is written entirely in letters to Richard Gere, the actor, which is really cool. Just I saw him do a reading for that book tour, and he said, oh gosh, I can't remember. I was gonna say he said that started out as kind of a joke when he started writing it, but I could be totally wrong. He did talk a lot about fan mail and how like the inspiration for that book was like fan mail is almost never about the author. It's more about like, hey, I read this book and I have feelings, which is really interesting. Something I never thought of as someone who's written very little fan mail, which is also probably kind of weird because I am big time fangirl of so many people. Anyway, I didn't choose that book, but I did think it was worth mentioning because it's weird, it's really effective, and he's really cool. What I did choose was another epistolary. Again, epistolary tends to mean a letter or diary. This is another one of my favorites by a favorite author of mine, Daniel Handler. This whole book is illustrated in paintings by Myra Coleman. And Daniel Handler is super famous, so I don't, as much as I love him, I don't like to bring him up all that much because he doesn't need all that much attention. He's Lemony Snicket, but this is his given name, not his pseudonym. Anyway, gorgeous book. It is out in paperback as well. I got the hardcover. I would suggest getting a hardcover because this is like a very hefty book, and because the illustrations are paintings, the paper is very heavy. Okay, so I'm again just reading the first page, and this is a letter, this whole book. Okay. Dear Ed, in a second, you'll hear a thunk at your front door, the one nobody uses. It'll rattle the hinges a bit when it lands because it's so weighty and important. A little jangle along with the thunk, and Joan will look up from whatever she's cooking. She'll look down in her saucepan, worried that if she goes to see what it is, it'll boil over. I can see her frown in the reflection of the bubbly sauce or whatnot. But she'll go and see. You won't, Ed, you wouldn't. You're upstairs, probably sweaty and alone. You should be taking a shower, but you're heartbroken on the bed, I hope. So it's your sister Joan who will open the door, even though the thunk's for you. You won't even know or hear what's being dumped at your door. You won't even know why it even happened. It's a beautiful day, sunny and whatnot, the sort of day when you think everything will be all right, etc. Not the right day for this, not for us who went out when it rains from October 5th until November 12th, but it's December now and the sky is bright and it's clear to me. I'm telling you why we broke up, Ed. I'm writing it in this letter, the whole truth of why it happened, and the truth is that I goddamn loved you so much. So this is also a really cool book in that, so again, I've seen Daniel Handler read, I saw this tour, and on it, he said, you know, anytime he told somebody he was writing a project on called Why We Broke Up, people always told him breakup stories, and isn't that funny that no one ever wanted to engage with him when he was writing about disaster-prone orphans. But it inspired something called the Why We Broke Up Project, which I think I had this book before that was a thing. Nope. Okay, the whywebrokeupproject.com, just Why We Broke Up Project, not the, in which celebrities and also like normal people like me and you give little breakup stories, and it's so cute. At the event for that tour, they gave out cards where you could write why we broke up on them, and they came with pencils, which I think I don't have anymore. It's so cool. Anyway, so clearly a letter, pretty easy to say. That is direct address. Epistolaries are, I want to say always direct address. Sometimes epistolaries are like diary entries, right? So they're not necessarily to you, but also like every once in a while you'll read one that's like, and dear diary, I blah da 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 da. Then we've got for our poem, which is, oh, it was already on my screen and I couldn't find it. I don't remember the name of the poem, but she will tell us. It is from a beautiful book. I'll grab the book while the video plays, by Aisha Sharif. She's a really cool poet from Kansas, and I love her. I got to meet her at an event once where I was a panelist and she was probably the headliner. She's really cool. It was very scary and overwhelming to meet her because she's so cool. Okay, let's just do it.
Several poems in the book. I have to say this. When I say the line about I need to strip clubs, it literally is. Strip club, like some whole lot of stuff in my mind. But it's interesting because it reflects on like you don't have to be in a specific place in order to worship. A lot of poems in this first section deal with the aspect of conversion, and like a lot of African American Muslims, my father converted in the late 70s, and my mom as well. And I think a lot about how conversion affects families, particularly kids, or even just the choices that your parents make when you are growing up with regards to faith. So I just wanted to read some poems in light of it. This next one is on page 21. To my Muslim father, if I was 7, I could dance for you, parade and spin my pink parasol. You would laugh, Call me beautiful girl. Back then, I strutted on tables when teachers weren't looking, wore shorts and parted my hair. I was a junior majorette. I batted my eyes and twirled an oversized baton. I had lots of work. To my dismay, I grew to be a woman. You said it was time I hide the girl underneath long sleeves and silk scarves. You sent me to the Muslim school where girls wore white leggings under ankle-length blue jumpers. I wrapped a scarf over my hair. You said it sat like a crown, but it gripped my head, left red bumps around the edges. I would twirl my finger around loose strands, tap my feet to old dance routines. You ignored me for a week the time I drew a heart on my ankle, while your sons did everything under your eye. I grew ashamed about getting you back, wearing fishnets, smoking cigarettes, trading my scarf for a scarlet beret. But I studied your face and saw myself. I knew you were making a model of me. I added in rhythms of Arabic prayers, introduced myself as your daughter. Faith had become my ticket to you, to that beautiful girl still dancing in my sleeves. I began to love you unconsciously. Yes, Father, you made a Muslim out of me.
Okay, I see that my screen share didn't work. I'm pretty embarrassed about that. So I'm gonna try that again. I apologize. So sorry if you've been bearing with me and had to sit through that. I'm glad that I pulled my phone up because I wouldn't have known.
When I say the line about it between a strip club and a state line, like it literally is. Like there's a strip club like a couple blocks up in my life. But it's interesting because it reflects on like you don't have to be in a specific place in order to worship. A lot of poems in this first section deal with the aspect of conversion, and like a lot of African American Muslims, my father converted in the late 70s and my mom as well. And I think a lot about how conversion affects families, particularly kids, or even just the choices that your parents make when you are growing up with regards to faith. So I just wanted to read some poems in light of that. This next one is on page 21. To my Muslim father. If I was 7, I could dance for you, parade and spin my pink parasol. You would laugh, call me beautiful girl. Back then, I strutted on tables when teachers weren't looking, wore shorts and parted my hair. I was a junior majorette. I batted my eyes and twirled an oversized baton. I had lots of boyfriends. To my dismay, I grew to be a woman. You said it was time I hide the girl underneath long sleeves and silk scarves. You sent me to the Muslim school where girls wore white leggings under ankle-length blue jumpers. I wrapped a scarf over my hair. You said it sat like a crown, but it gripped my head, left red bumps around the edges. I would twirl my finger around loose strands, tap my feet to old dance routines. You ignored me for a week the time I drew a heart on my ankle, while your sons did everything under your eye. I grew ashamed about getting you back, wearing fishnets, smoking cigarettes, trading my scarf for a scarlet beret. But I studied your face and saw myself. I knew you were making a model of me. I added in rhythms of Arabic prayers, introduced myself as your daughter. Faith had become my ticket to you, to that beautiful girl still dancing in my sleeves. I began to love you unconsciously. Yes, Father, you made a Muslim out of me.
Okay, so sorry about that. I feel like I've done this too many times to have that mistake. So yeah, that is a direct address, right? She's speaking directly to her father. Aisha Sharif, this is the book she was reading from, To Keep from Undressing, is a Kansas poet, which I mean, I like the Midwest. I believe I know from looking for that video, that she was also a Kave Kanam poet. Our poetry teacher a couple of years ago at the Collins Writers Conference, Derek L. Austin was also a Cave Canem poet. He has a new book coming out next year, Tenderness. So sorry, this is on my phone. I didn't prepare to show it to you. It's available for pre-order. Sorry, it's out this year. And it's also the Isabella Gardner Poetry Award winner for 2020. He can't stop winning. He is so talented. Yeah, so back to the point, the direct address versus second person. I feel like those examples that I gave are pretty standard. They're pretty typical of the difference between the two. We'll talk, we'll make separate videos later on that are, more how-to-y, more when to-y on each separately, partially because epistolary is my baby. Maybe not intentionally, but it is the thing that I do the most naturally, which makes me feel like I have a special relationship with direct address in general. But the cliff notes, right? The slightly easier to stomach version of when and why. Second person, which again, that was Bright Lights Big City and the Joy Priest poem. They can be more effective emotionally than first or third person because you're really forcing the reader to connect with the piece as if that piece is about them in particular. In prose, it's often poetry really with second person does whatever it wants and gets away with it because it's second person is really intuitive with poetry, I think. Often though, we see second person in prose in present tense, which is interesting. It makes it much more immediate and urgent, right? Bright Lights Big City is also in present tense. It can be done in past tense. I'm sure it can be done in future tense. Something I forgot to mention is the Choose Your Own Adventure books, which I suppose is a brand, but that style of book is in second person. You are the person choosing your adventure, right? That's, I'm sure, the first place I ever encountered second person. And I think we think of those more like games, and I would like that to not be the case because they're very difficult to write. We had a Iron Pen finalist a couple of years ago, James Patrick Schmidt, now on the city council in Moline, who wrote a Choose Your Own Adventure, and like it was so stellar. Like they are absolutely pieces of art. But I think because they're fun, we forget how much labor must go into them. Anyway, those are just places to find them out in the wild. The shift in perspective allows a different kind of focus, both from the author and from the reader. Did that like I'm the reader. Which is really, really useful in learning to write and learning to write better. I think second person is a really important experiment. And also I think the first time someone encounters, especially like a prose writer, the first time someone encounters a second person book, it messes them up a little bit and they want to try it. So I recommend reading second person, even if it's, a Choose Your Own Adventure or not Bright Lights Big City. There are plenty of other books that are not this one. If I would say you've got to have a certain strength of stomach for this book. It is a lot about excess in the 80s. So maybe I'll add to this post, I'll add a list of books in second person that you can encounter. For direct address, again, the shift in perspective allows a different focus for both the reader and the writer. It's a lot more common. We see it a lot more places, speeches and sermons are direct address. You're speaking directly to your audience. I briefly considered reading a Martin Luther King or Jimmy Carter sermon, and then I was like, that would be a really weird thing to do, except that they're both really good writers. Like speeches, if you just like look up greatest speeches of all time or whatever, you'll find a lot of really beautiful writing in second person. In direct address, my goodness. Even I can make that mistake. Direct address also can be really fun for trying a new understanding. There's a lot of the times when people do like a persona poem or persona piece in second person, because you're trying really hard to understand an other. Maybe that other is, like I said, a piece of a printer, a piece of a printer, a piece of technology like a printer. I once did a direct address from the perspective of the person who stole my phone, because I had my phone stolen. I thought it was very edgy. I read this poem at an event from my phone, and that wasn't a thing yet. That was like very frowned upon at the time. um, but that was something I was so upset about. So I was like, you know what, let's try this exercise. Direct address can be to anything, anyone, from anyone, and persona is a useful way to get into that. Also doing something like an epistolary, the reason I got into that is I find myself being more honest, and oftentimes more honest means more well written. When I was writing directly to a person, I used to have to, because I've gotten really into the epistolary as a craft, I used to have to really imagine that I was going to give this piece to the person. People tell you to like write a letter to someone saying what you wish you could and then burn it. I used to have to like really pretend I was gonna really, really give it to the addressee in order to write well and or write honestly. And clearly I have some like psychological something going on there with that, because the point wasn't to actually give it to them, but to do some writing. But sometimes direct address can help us be more honest, which is another reason to try it out. Generally speaking, I think that these two forms are both really, really useful experiments for becoming better writers. And I think they're really fun to read because of that. If a writer does it well, either of these things, they're doing it really well. They're not easy to do. So doing it well is going to be next level. Both are really, really excellent exercises. I just said that. I already said that too. So I guess that's basically my my explanation of the difference in my examples. So I will be getting into more in-depth studies of each form later on. We'll be taking a break from Write More Light videos for June and July and maybe August, like end of mid-June through mid-August, something like that, because Ryan and I will be focused on the Young Emerging Writers Internship, which, guess what, gets me to what's up at the Midwest Writing Center. And the first and most exciting thing is the Young Emerging Writers, and it's not the most exciting, there's so much good stuff coming up, but the Young Emerging Writers Internship is accepting applications through May 15th. That's young writers throughout our service area, maybe beyond, because it's going to be digital again this year. So really apply if you're semi-local, apply if you're not so local. This is young writers and artists age 15 to 19. We learn how to write a little bit. We learn how to critique a lot. We learn how to put together a totally legit, I just grab randomly. This is volume 7 from 2012. Totally legit, full-blown literary magazine. You will almost certainly end up a fully published writer. It's a really great experience. It is what put me on the path of becoming a writer. If you think that I am just someone who talks on camera, I'm not. I'm a writer who gets published and engages with literature. And I have never heard from a young emerging writer intern who said it wasn't life-changing and positive. It's a really beautiful experience, and I encourage anyone to at least spread the news to folks they think might be interested. It's a paid internship where you make like-minded friends and learn about art. Where's the downside? Okay, now I'm gonna try to do some kind of chronological order. of what's going on. So we've got Birdies for Charity has started for the donation session. Of course, the John Deere Classic isn't happening quite yet. But as with in general with Birdies for Charity, we get a 5% bonus for any donations, but also the Midwest Writing Center has 2 donors who are willing to match up to $10,000 in donations. So your money is going twice as far if you donate to us. So if you go to that Birdies for Charity website, and that's all over our Facebook page, all over our website, but I'll throw it in the comments of this video too. Our Birdies charity number is 1370-1370. Spectra will be back May 22nd. It will be an outdoor show at Ross Talks in Rock Island. We are very excited. We've got Beth Roberts, who has a new book out from Fence Books called Like You. We'll have Shishwen Collins, Midwest Writing Center Press author, who will be doing her first non-digital reading from the book. The book is called Flowing Water, Falling Flowers. And I believe we have confirmed Kaylee Cool Chi. Gosh, it's been a long time since I double checked her name, who had a chapbook out last year and didn't get to do any events for that. She was a Young Emerging Writers intern from DeWitt. She now goes to the University of Iowa. She works with our friends at Iowa City Press. Nope, Iowa City Poetry. She's an incredible, incredible writer and spoken word poet, and not one to miss. So again, May 22nd at Ross Talks. Excellent, excellent Spectra show. The conference is coming up. We started doing some posting about that in the last week. But if you have been missing that, we've got short stories with Joe Mino, who is an excellent, excellent teacher, but also like Nelson Algren Award winner for his short stories. We've got the personal essay with Midwest Writing Center favorite, Liz Lenz. Super excited to have her back teaching. We've got poetry and gratitude. I love that the title of her workshop is Unabashed Gratitude in Tough Times, something to that effect, with Gail Marie Thompson. We've got novel writing with Tariq Shaw. He's a $2 radio author, and this totally isn't being announced yet, but we will have 2 copies of his book, Whiteout Conditions, to give away later on. My whole stack of these books is in the kitchen. I did a photo shoot yesterday, so I can't just show them all to you, and I'm sorry for that. You'll see them soon, or go check out anywhere where we post things, because I've posted pictures. And of course, our keynote address and masterclass with Allison Joseph, who, like, if you don't already know her, she's a shining, amazing star in the poetry world. This is her new book. It's either out 2 days ago or in 2 days, called Lexicon. Absolute killer of a poet. Our usual stuff, Writer's Studio will be happening May 1st and May 15th. Those are both Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Time. That's a Midwest Writing Center sponsored or hosted writing group, critique group. We usually start out giving with some conversation about our trials and triumphs in writing over the last couple of weeks, and then we get into the critiquing. I'm the person who hosts that group, so it's pretty low key, pretty chill, and always, I think it's always a lot of fun. We get a really great group of people every time, and we would love to have you. With that said, we'll also have Quint City Poets. I think that's the first Wednesday of every month. I have it in front of me. I can tell you. I brought my calendar this time. I know, it's crazy. Yes, the first Wednesday of every month. So that will be May 5th. We also have our Flash Fatales. That's an all-femme flash writing group. So the word limit is like 1,500 words. If you're a flash writer, you may want to join. That happens on the second Monday. Yes, the second Monday of the month. Again, I believe that's at 7 p.m. Yeah, that'll be May 10th. I will be there. I would love to see you there. They like to keep the group small, but they do have an opening or 2 currently so that everybody can get their work read and critiqued fairly. May 26th, this is another exciting event coming up. It's our annual meeting, but it's also, we're going to have our preview reading for the anthology of 2020. I think we're currently calling it these interesting times. It's an anthology of survival and trials, tribulations, triumphs, etc. That happened in 2020. So we're going to have, I think, 5 readers who will be published in that anthology, and it's going to be really killer. Plus, if you attend that, you will then have the chance to win free tuition to the Collins Writers Conference, which you already know because I won't stop talking about it. Is going to be amazing. Fun thing also, Birdies for Charity donors can get membership along with their donation and are entered to win free tuition as well to the Writers Conference. Coming up in Write More Light in May, well, on this Thursday, I'm very nervous to do a live critique on air with you, so you can see how that may go before you jump in. But we're going to have a woman I went to college with. I'm so excited and proud of her. She is a debut author. Her book's coming out next year, but she's already had write-ups in Publishers Weekly. Really exciting. We're going to talk to her. Her name is Caroline Hune on May 6th about navigating the publishing world as a debut author. We're going to have Arax Cass on Write More Light. I already said that. On May 13th. She is a young writer, social justice advocate. She works with some queer journals and some Middle Eastern journals, and is a really cool person. She also wrote, I forgot I had her book here. I actually almost grabbed it earlier on accident. She wrote this book called Defenders, which is stories from Armenia's border villages, which is how I met her. Not from being in a border village, but because I met her in an Armenian group. We will have Jennifer McBain Stevens, another of the rock stars over at Iowa City Poetry, on May 20th. Then on May 27th, we're going to have a panel of professional writers who will talk about rejection, accepting it, dealing with it, preparing for it, etc. I also want to shout out Iowa City Poetry again, May 1st. They're having an outdoor reading series. There's going to be spots all throughout the afternoon and evening in Iowa City, all outdoor, in which a lot of really cool writers will be there reading. Ryan and I are privileged enough to be included in that. So if you're in Iowa City, we'll see you May 1st. I believe that's 5 to 8 p.m. So there you have it. My desk is full of books now. Yeah, that's all of my upcoming events. And I'm obviously super excited about all of this stuff. So if you're dipping out, please write more light into your life. If you're sticking around with me, my phone is somewhere in this pile of books. We're going to do, you can choose if you want to do direct address or second person. And I have my notebook to do this along with right here. I have a lot of stuff here, but I know where everything is. You can choose direct address or second person. If you do direct address, I would like you to write to something in the space that you're currently sitting in. And if you're doing second person, I would like you to write about something in the space you're currently sitting in, so, or standing in, whatever it is you're doing. And got the phone out, but I didn't put the timer on. It's really weird using a phone in front of a camera. Okay, 5 minutes on the clock. I'm going to be doing second person instead of direct address. Do the slightly more uncomfortable thing for me. So I said to something or about something in the space I'm in. So I'm doing second person. So I'm talking to you about the thing I'm looking at right now is a hormone diffuser for cats. And that may be what I talk about, my cat's hormone problems. It's like for calming. gonna be really hard to do that and not do direct address. So that'll be difficult. Yeah, it's kind of weird. I have the Facebook video up next to the Zoom video, and it looks like I'm facing myself. I made the alarm quieter and it still scared me. It's fine. 5 minutes are up. I encourage you to keep writing if you're onto something. I'm gonna read like the first sentence of what I wrote because I said it would be difficult to not do direct address. So what I basically did was I wrote it from my own perspective, but as a you. So kind of talking to myself in a weird way. You are tired of spending so much money on hormones that only slightly calm your cat. He's always been anxious, but grown more aggressive recently. You don't want to give him medication, but at this point, what are the risks? So it's really about me, but I said you. Hopefully this was informational. If you like these videos, thank you. Thank you for watching. Let us know what else you might want to hear from us about. It doesn't have to be me. We can get, experts on whatever your interests are here. We want to be a community resource. So if you're interested in anything particular, please let us know. You can drop your comments here, or send us a message through our social media or through email. We are here for you, always on your team, always hoping to help you write more light into your life.